Thanks, Yannick. It's really cool to see not just how we can extend our APIs within our product to build an identity solution, but how we can also take our APIs and use them to build solutions for us as developers and us as administrators, right? Not everything that we build using our APIs has to be an end result for identity governance, but it can also be how we can govern identities better as individuals. The next thing that I'm really excited for, and I wanted to keep it a surprise announcement. I didn't want to put it on the agenda because it's something that we've really been working for here at SailPoint for the last 2.5 years, more or less since we started the developer community. It's something that our community members recognized that was a gap in what we provided here as far as developer tooling goes. And I want to bring somebody on the stage with me who is part of our developer community, and they've been contributing this since before SailPoint provided. So before I say what it is here, I want to bring on one of our community members, Darren. Darren, can you hear me?
I can. Good morning.
Darren, how are you doing today? I'm
doing very well. It's still very early in the morning, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so for those who are just tuning in, Darren's joining us out of Sydney, Australia. Darren, I appreciate you taking the time to join this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Darren, I wanted to have you here. We've talked about this for months, right? This is something that you've helped us build out over the last 6 months especially. But, Darren, if you recall, we've been talking about this particular tool for a little over 2 years now. Is that right?
I think it's since the inception of the DevRel team completely.
I think that's right. So, okay, what this tool is, it's something that you've all been asking for in the community for years. It's something that we've had to work on internally from a software development perspective, product and engineering, legals has been involved in this. And it's really cool that today, here at Developer Days, I get to share with you all for the first time that we're going to be announcing software development kits, or SDKs, that are going to be formally built and maintained and provided by us here at SailPoint. So we're going to be starting with 3 SDKs off the bat that are going to be available today. They're open source and they're all MIT licensed, and that's Golang, TypeScript, and PowerShell. And you'll see another question mark down there because we're really going to be looking to you all. What do you want to see from us next? We obviously understand that there's a plethora of programming languages out there that solve a large number of different problems depending on the space that you're using them. So let us know what it is that you're looking for next, and we can definitely do that. But Darren, I want to go to you first because you kind of built the original SailPoint SDK. It may have been the unofficial SDK, but you built an SDK that's been up in the PowerShell gallery with a little well over 2,000 unique downloads I saw just the other day. My question to you, Darren, is why did you build this? Why did you provide something for the community and share it with everybody else and keep it updated and maintained as we as SailPoint updated our platform?
Yeah, it's probably a little interesting story. I was working for a large SI here in Australia. We had a customer who was one of the foundation customers for IdentityNow down in this region. And we'd built a solution for them, but we needed to orchestrate it externally. And we needed to get some information out for auditing and reporting and that sort of thing. And I started looking at ways to do that, and there was no real sort of way to do that with PowerShell. And that's what our team of managed services engineers knew. They didn't know Java or that sort of thing, or some of the other languages that were there as options or examples. So I thought, well, there's some APIs here. I'll bring something up and let them go with it. But what we found out is, depending on which API you're talking to and what piece of functionality you wanted, it wasn't all the same. There was different types of authentication. There was a few hoops you had to jump through at that time, and they weren't able to just use the scripts I gave them because some of the setup was not very intuitive, and some of it was very timely as well before things expired. So I turned those scripts into a module and then gave them the base functionality they needed, and then they kept wanting more and more and more. And so what we ended up with is I actually released it to the community, had a little bit of help from the community as well, and then we got a fully featured PowerShell module that could do full end-to-end orchestration of IdentityNow. And it took on a life of its own. Like you're saying, there's thousands of downloads. I still kept it maintained now for almost 4 years. It's getting a lot harder to do now with the rapid pace of change that your team is doing with standardization on the APIs, authentication, but also the number of features that are also coming. So this is so timely to have something that's actually a SailPoint maintained and supported, and the community involvement as well. It's just a refreshing and welcome addition to the platform.
Well, that's good, Darren, because obviously we've seen firsthand, just how much you've contributed for the community. So I appreciate you helping us build this over the last 2 years, and I hope that we do you right by carrying on the PowerShell module as well as 2 other SDKs and whatever else may come from that. I kind of have somewhat of an existential question for you, Darren. Why do you contribute? Why did you build something like this and give it to the community for free, and then openly maintain it as the community made requests? Why do you contribute to a community like the SailPoint developer community?
It's something that I've been doing probably for the last 6 or 7 years, since I left a previous organization where I wasn't allowed to talk about a lot of what I did. And I'd always mentored people within an organization, but never done it more openly externally. So having this out, being supported by my then employer, and actually getting to work with other IT pros from around the world, but also usually with something that I believe in, or something that I see value in. So IdentityNow, PowerShell, just identity in general is something that I'm very passionate about. And it's my sort of way of giving back a little bit of what I've learned or what I've done over the years. I know in my early years of my career, I wouldn't have been able to do something like this. I'm not actually a developer. It's just something, a little bit of IT pro on the side. So yeah, it's just giving a little bit back, helping lift everyone's skills up, and also bringing a platform to the next level, and hoping that we get adoption and identity gets better. Zero trust.
Well, I think we hear that a lot, Darren. I'm not a developer, but I still need to do this developer-related thing. So you're not alone in that. Well, I wanted to use Developer Days, Darren, to thank you. You kind of were the developer community before our team and before this program existed. So I, on behalf of the developer community and our team and SailPoint as well, we just want to thank you for everything that you contributed.
Thank you very much. It was a fine line there for a little bit. We got a little bit of endorsement from SailPoint, and they said, just go for it. Just do your thing. And I took it a lot further than I think they ever thought I would. So it was nice. I didn't get a cease and desist. I was very clear that it was not a SailPoint endorsed piece, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, we're glad to have you in the developer community, Darren. And that's a great segue, because we have Phil Ellis here with us today. Phil is our lead software engineer on the developer relations team. Phil is really behind building and maintaining our new SailPoint maintained SDKs. So we're going to go to Phil right over on the stage here. And Phil, just walk us through building these SDKs. Good luck, man.
Thank you, Jordan. All right. Well, Jordan just introduced me, but my name is Phil Ellis. I've been here at SailPoint for a little over a year, and I'm really happy to be able to show everyone today how to use these SDKs, be a part of this big announcement. As Jordan said, we've been talking about this for a long time, and the time has finally come. We finally have SDKs that we can provide all of you developers out there, and anyone who wants to extend our product. We can finally do it using these SDKs. I really hope to see where this leads. I don't know what's going to come out of this, but I'm sure a lot of great things are going to come out of this. So I'm really excited to share this with you all today. So let me get started here. As Jordan mentioned, there are 3 SDKs available today. We've got TypeScript and Go and PowerShell. We plan on adding Java and Python, but you know what? That's still up in the air. You guys, everyone on the call today, make sure to post in chat. Give us some feedback on the survey. Let us know what you'd like to see, and we want to build it for you. So that's really like what we're here for, right? It's to help you all as developers to do your job and to do it well. And these SDKs are just another tool in your tool belt to help you do that. So some of the things I want to talk about is just what do these SDKs give you right out of the box, besides just native support in these different languages. We've built these features, and you can see them on the slide there. You get right out of the box automatic credential configuration. So you don't have to pass your credentials everywhere inside these SDKs. It'll fetch them automatically from either environment variables or a configuration file, which you'll see that later on in the conference, how you set up the configuration file and all of that. I'm not going to go over that now, so just stay tuned and you'll get more information on that. But it just makes it easy to use right out the gate. You don't have to do a lot of configuration to get going with them. The other thing that's supported here is pagination. So again, from our community, one of the things they don't like is having to write all this custom logic to paginate API calls. And now it's just built right in. So you can call any API call that needs to be paginated. You can just pass in, we've got generic types for each of the SDKs. You pass in the right stuff and you get a paginated result back. So instead of being limited to 250 results, you can get 10,000 results or even more through the search API. The other thing that you get is request retry support. So if there's an issue during the call, you can have automatic retries happen. So it's built into each API client, and you can get details about what retryable we support. But we picked one for each client, and you can configure it however you like. So it's built in there, and I'll go over that a little bit in a minute. And then the last thing, and this is kind of nice, and it segues to the next point, is that these SDKs are going to be updated, and it's part of our CI/CD pipeline. So as we make changes to our specs, as new API endpoints get brought in, as the documentation changes, these SDKs are going to get updated automatically. So it's built into the CI/CD. It's very seamless as far as you guys. You'll just be able to download the new version, and you'll get all those new updates coming right in. And that's the segue into this next part. So just for a little bit of background into what's actually going on here, we're using the OpenAPI generator to build kind of the underlying layer of all these SDKs. And that gets us 90% of the way there. But obviously we add on that little, those little extras, the pagination and the retryable and things like that on top of it. So we have a small team. We wanted to be able to do something that was scalable, though. We wanted to be able to provide all the SDKs for every language that you guys out there want to be able to use. And so we utilize a OpenAPI generator to kind of help us get there. But we also wanted to make it personal, right? Have the SailPoint stuff going on in there. And so that's why we added the pagination logic and that other stuff on top. The other thing that it does is we bring together like the V3 and the beta APIs and the V2 and even a little bit of CC in there right now. Hopefully we'll get rid of those soon, but right now those are required to do your job. So we bring them all in together into one place so you can download one thing and have access to all the APIs that you need to do your job. And with that, I'll move on to actually showing you how these work, because I know that's what you all want to see anyway. But here on the list here, I've got the public repositories available, so you can see where they are. Just go to our SailPoint-OSS repo, and you can search for those three and get going. So first thing I want to show you is if I want to use, I'll start with PowerShell. So obviously I can search for PowerShell here, and there it is. And there's some nice documentation on how to actually use this, but really the only thing you need to do is just install the module. And let's see if I go in there. I got a PowerShell window open already. I can install that module, and it'll be on my machine. You might get a prompt. I already have it installed, so you might get a prompt asking you to type something else like a yes in, but that's pretty much all there is to it. And once you have that module installed, it's just a matter of starting to use it. So as long as your credentials are already in there, it'll just work. So I can do something like get accounts, and you can see it's already kind of auto-populating for me. I'll limit it to maybe 5, and then make that API call, and you see just like that, I got my accounts. So it's pretty easy to get going with that one. There's also the invoke paginate function. So get accounts. I probably want to limit this somehow. So, I saw there was already, so I'll just use what was already there. So we'll limit to 1,000. That's probably good. And once again, it'll just call that API, except now it calls it multiple times, and it's going to give you a lot more back. There it all is. Okay, so pretty nice. There's a lot more features in there. Feel free to dig in and spend some time in the documentation. Again, these are all open source. So if you see something that maybe you don't like or you want to change on it, then feel free to make some contributions to our repository. That's what it's there for. That's why we made it open source, not just so that we have to own it, but so that everyone can own it together. So I'll close out of that. The next thing I want to show is the TypeScript one. So I'll just go right up top. I'm going to do this one a little bit differently, just to show you that inside of each of the repositories, we have some examples. So I'm going to just clone this. Let me get my shell here. And I'll paste that in. That should be the right one. So I'll just clone that repository onto my machine. And let's see what we have there. And I'll open this up. In Visual Studio Code. You can see we've got the entire repository here. I'm actually going to end up going into my examples directory. And let me open up a terminal. Okay. Now it's going to fail initially just because right now the API client is referencing a file which doesn't exist. So I'm just going to copy this and remove this dependency altogether. And then I'll save it. And now let's go ahead and install that. And that should update my dependencies with the real API client off of NPM Central. Just to make sure I have everything and not just that one. So I've got all my packages installed. And now I can even look in my source file and you can see I've got a bunch of stuff going on here, but really I should be able to just run it using npm run start. And yeah, it's making my pagination call, and I got 36 results back. So that was calling the get paginated transforms call right here. And you can see it just made that call. We had a limit of 250, but we only had 36 total, and I just printed out the length of it. So TypeScript is, it's off. And there's a bunch of other examples in here you might be interested in looking at. There's one to create a transform, one to search, to run search, and that's got like this paginated search API in there, as well as some other things. So that's TypeScript, and now we'll go ahead and do Golang. So let me just back out of here a little bit. And go into my Golang directory. And let's search for Golang here too. Yeah, there it is, Golang SDK. So this one will do the, the old-fashioned way. Well, not old-fashioned, but we'll follow the README. So here we've got how I can create my project, and I'll just go ahead and copy that. Obviously, you might want to put your actual project name in there, but for us, this will work just fine. I just created the project, and I need to create an SDK.go file, so time to open up Visual Studio Code. All right, so that's all good. And then what do we say? SDK.go. And let's see here. Let's just paste this code inside there. Okay. And once we save that, I think my next thing we're going to need to do is actually install the SDK. As it says here, you can set up your base URL, client ID, and client secret. So that's something you could do to make this all work for you. But in our case, we're just going to, since I already have those set, we're just going to go ahead and do the next step, which is go mod tidy. So this should go ahead and download the SDK, which it just did. And the next thing to do is just run it, which you can do that or just go run. And let's see if it works. All right, cool. So we just called our get accounts, and we got back Brian. Very nice. So the Go SDK is working now too. So we just, in like 10 minutes, we just installed and ran 3 SDKs. So you can see how easy that is to do. And hopefully, I can't wait to see what everyone here in the community builds with them. So just to go over a few features that this SDK brings. I know I went over them very briefly in the PowerPoint, but I want to show you a little bit more in depth what's going on with these. So actually, if I go back to my examples, if I go up to examples here, we've got an SDK.go file. And if I copy this, then we'll have some more code to look at. So that'll be good to do. I'll go ahead and save that. Yeah, okay, we've got some more stuff here. Let's see, this is going to call get search results, and I'm going to change this to 100 because it seems like probably don't want to search everything right away. And let me just run this to make sure it works. All right, it does. So it's just calling that API with the paginate call. And so let me go over those different features. You can see here it says new default configuration. That's what's actually going to go out and fetch your credentials and get everything set up so that it's ready to go. And then you pass that credential or that credential information configuration into the new API client. First thing I'll show you is this retry feature. So you can see we're using this HTTP client. You can inspect that and kind of see, oh, it's using the retryable HTTP client. So that's something you can download off GitHub and install into any of your Go language SDKs or whatever and use. But in our case, that's the one that we're using here. And there's a bunch of different things you can configure. So if I go back into configuration, you can see there's back off, there's check retry. There's a lot of different features in here that you go ahead and utilize before you start making your calls, however you might want to use it. So in this case, I just have retry max set to 10, which is completely fine. We'll probably never actually hit that in this case either, but it's there for you in case you want to use it. The next thing I'll show you is kind of how the IntelliSense works and what it gives you. It's really, really nice. So if I look at my API client object, you can see now I have beta, CC, V2, V3. I can just pick the one that I want to use. It's all there for me. If I pick V3, I go into, I don't know, perhaps like this API, the Access Request Approvals API, and then it has all the different methods that I can evoke. So it's just really nice. Not only does it display them for you, but it also gives you documentation, the same documentation that you see on our portal. So it's just so nice to be able to see that right in front of you. You don't have to navigate to our website to see the documentation. It's just right here. It's available for you to use. And again, like I said, as that documentation changes and gets updated over time, you'll be able to see that update in the SDK and in the documentation that pops up here. So it's just a really nice thing to have and makes developing using these SDKs a lot easier than what you've had to do in the past. Even if you've made your own clients, it's just nice to be able to use this one that fetches everything automatically right from our API spec. Another thing that I'll show you is searching and also creating some of these more complicated objects. So this is particularly useful in the Golang SDK. It has this unmarshaled JSON command. Most of the objects will have that. So like the search one, you can pass in a string that is a JSON object, call unmarshaled JSON, and it gives you the actual search object back with, everything properly, formatted in there for you, as opposed to actually trying to generate the object through, actually dot this, dot that, dot indices, dot identities, query, and all that stuff. You can just pass the JSON object. Makes it easier because our documentation, of course, has JSON objects already available that you can copy and paste in. So this is a good way of doing it. And you'll see that in the examples folder. So something that's handy to have. And then, of course, the other thing is this paginate feature. So there's actually a couple different paginators. So if I look at SailPoint there's paginate search API, and then there's paginate with defaults. And the search API is a little bit unique. I'm sure anyone who's used the search API knows this, but the pagination works a little bit differently there. So we have a special paginate method just for the search API that you can use. This allows you to get back an unlimited number of results. And then the paginate one is similar. There's another example of that down here. I don't want to go into too many details on that, but paginate with defaults. And then, of course, if you do normal paginate, you can pass in things like the offset that you start at, how many results you should get back with each call, things like that. And what your max would be. Yeah, that would be the third thing you can get. Let's see, was there something else I wanted to show? No, I think that's about it. So, you know what? I hope everyone learned a lot today about these SDKs. I hope everyone's excited to start using them. And like I said, this has been a really long journey for all of us here. And so we're just really happy to be able to show these to you today. And can't wait to see what everyone's feedback is on them. Can't wait to see how the community might actually add to these too. So, I showed you a few little features that we have, 4 little features that we have, but there's so much more that we could do with these. And I hope the community jumps on and adds some things to each of these SDKs. And with that, just thanks for giving me the time today.